this is Campobello team. We've got an entangled right whale in the Gulf. Severe rap. Breathing irregular. Request immediate support. Over.
Copy that. How bad is it? Bad. This one's fading. We can't wait.
Welcome to True Animal Terrors, where real danger meets real stories. Don't look away. Somewhere beyond the choppy horizon, a massive shadow drifts just below the surface, its labored breaths like distant thunder. On deck, Joe Howlett stands, silent eyes locked on the water hands resting on the worn handle of his rope knife. He's done this before dozens of times, but today feels different. Beneath the rolling swells of the North Atlantic, an ancient giant is dying. The call for help has gone out, and Joe is the one answering it. By the end of the day, the whale will be free, but the sea will claim the man who saved it. Welcome to True Animal Terrors, where real danger meets real stories. They say the ocean heals, that its tides soothe restless minds, its rhythm, a steady heartbeat reminding us that life goes on no matter how tangled, no matter how deep the troubles above. Beneath the surface lies silence. And in that silence, a fragile trust exists between man and sea, between life and the unknowable. But the ocean is never just a place of peace. It is ancient. It is wild. And sometimes even the gentlest rescue becomes a gamble with fate. For those who wade into its domain, those who devote themselves to untangling its pain, the sea does not always say thank you. One man, a mariner with calloused hands and eyes seasoned by salt spray, gave everything to the creatures he tried to save. And on one July morning, the ocean gave something back, but it came like a thunderclap. There are men who do not seek applause. They rise before dawn, work in silence, return home with their skin tasting of brine. Joe Howlett was one of them, a lobsterman by trade, a guardian by calling. He could tie a dozen knots in the dark, feel the pull of the current, without looking, read the sea the way others read a map. To most, the sea was labor. To Joe, it was responsibility. He had no letters after his name, no scientific degree hanging on his wall. What he had was time experience and an unshakable sense that he could make a difference. In the early 2000s, Joe co-founded the Campobello Whale Rescue Team, a band of fishermen turned protectors. Men who once hauled in the gear that trapped whales now risked their own lives to set those giants free. North Atlantic right whales are not always lucky enough to escape. They drag ropes and nets for weeks, even months. Their bodies weaken, they starve, they drown slowly. For more than 15 years, Joe answered every call. In glass-smooth seas or heaving gray swells, he went wherever the silent cries came from. But no rope can hold back the ocean forever. And the deeper his mission took him, the closer he drifted toward a moment no one could predict. The trail leads us to the Gulf of St. Lawrence, to a call for help, to a rescue that would etch itself into history. The North Atlantic right whale is a relic from another age, older than the nations that now share its waters, rarer than most people realize. Fewer than 350 survive. Nearly everyone bears the same grim tattoos, ropes burned into flesh scars along fins and flukes. These lines don't just wrap around the outside, one marine expert said. They cut deep, sometimes right to the bone. Whales drag them for miles. They can't feed. They can't surface properly. Some simply fade and sink. To save a whale, you have to get close, too close. They are as long as city buses, as heavy as 60 tons. Frightened, injured, unpredictable. One sweep of a tail can kill. Joe had seen it all, ropes tangled through blowholes, flukes bound like clenched fists. Every approach was a game of seconds, one wrong move, spelling disaster for both whale and rescuer. It wasn't just skill, it was instinct. Joe could read the water sense the instant before a whale surged or spun. Yet even with decades of experience, you're always a heartbeat from chaos. Every rescue is a race, breath against rope, trust against fear, life against something darker. We're losing them faster than we can save them, marine scientists warned, but people like Joe kept showing up. And on Monday, July 10th, 2017, when the call came that another whale was in trouble, Joe didn't hesitate. The sea that morning was restless, the sky low and heavy. Somewhere beyond the surf, a whale fought for its life. The message was urgent, an entangled North Atlantic right whale identification number 4123 drifting in the Gulf. Right away, we knew it was bad, one expert recalled. The whale was wrapped tight, breathing was labored, every minute mattered. Joe volunteered. No pause, no second thoughts. The ocean gives you what you give it, he liked to say. That day he meant every word. The Gulf of St. Lawrence stretches wide its surface, deceptive calm in places, choppy in others. Beneath it teems with life, much of it on the edge of survival. Joe's teammate remembered his quiet focus. He didn't rush, didn't chatter, just kept watching the lines. Then he'd glance out at the water like he already knew how it would end. What they were chasing was more than a whale. It was a moment, an intersection of instinct and unpredictability. Once they found the animal, there'd be no turning back. They had done this before, many times. But this time, the ending would be different. Ahead lay the final cut, the last moment of calm before fate tightened its unseen rope. They spotted him just after noon. Whale 4123, a mature male, one of fewer than 500 left alive. He was tangled in a maze of trap lines and buoys. The gear had been there a long time. The whale barely moved, exhaustion radiating from every sluggish turn. This was where Joe excelled. He could read tension not just in the ropes, but in the animal's breathing, in the faint tremor of its fluke. At 60 tons, one twitch could destroy the boat. Joe moved in for the final cut, his move, his moment. The knife slid, the rope gave way, and the whale was free. It happened in seconds, a crew member said, voice trembling. The tail came up, no aggression, no warning, just raw instinct. A reflex of panic. The crack was like a tree snapping in a storm. Joe went down instantly. The radio operator's voice broke. Campobello team. Injury on board. Serious head trauma. Requesting immediate medevac. The whale slipped beneath the surface, vanishing into the deep free at last. Joe lay motionless on the deck. What began as salvation ended as sacrifice. In his crew's eyes, Joe had saved a life. But the sea had claimed something in return. The instant the rope fell away, the ocean seemed to pause. The giant surged forward, its tail slicing through the air like a guillotine. The blow landed with devastating force. Chaos exploded on deck, a shout, a rush of boots. Someone dropped to their knees beside him. The world narrowed to the sound of wind and water. Blood pooled against the deck boards. Radio static hissed through the air, broken by a trembling voice calling the Coast Guard. Hands moved fast, beginning CPR, pressing, counting, willing life back into him. They tried everything, but with each passing second, it became clear Joe was slipping away. By the time the rescue helicopter thundered overhead, the fight was already lost. Joe Howlett, father fisherman hero, was gone. Not taken by malice, but by the very creature he had saved. The scene was frantic, heartbreaking, helpless. The emotional core of the day seemed to fold in on itself. A sharp, breathless urgency gave way to stillness, a silence heavier than any scream. The irony was cruel. In freeing the whale, Joe had given his own life. As the sun sank over the Gulf of St. Lawrence, word of his death began to travel, carried far beyond the rolling swells. It spread quickly across weathered docks, into kitchens, through research stations, and over borders. By nightfall, headlines flashed across screens. Veteran whale rescuer killed saving entangled giant. At the New England Aquarium, work halted. Staff stood quietly, some wiping tears. At NOAA headquarters, a moment of silence was held. In fishing towns across Canada and the United States, flags were lowered to half-mast. Boats in harbors raised their horns in mourning. A man who had braved the sea to give life back had now become part of its legend. The New England Aquarium called him a true friend to whales and a hero to all of us. In Canada, his colleagues said simply, he gave everything for the animals he loved. Joe's legacy would live on in every freed whale in the waters of the North Atlantic. His death was not just a loss, it was a fracture in a worldwide community of marine defenders. But by morning, grief began to shift into purpose. There was unity, a call to remember him not only for his final day, but for the life he lived. The tone softened, deepened. Reflection replaced shock. Joe was remembered not only as a man, but as a symbol of selflessness. Nature had taken, but humanity responded with honor. He had given whales a second chance, and in return, he had given people a reason to keep fighting for the wild. The sea holds many stories, but few as noble as this. Joe Howlett had not just rescued whales, he had shown the world what it meant to give fully, fearlessly, without asking for anything in return. His death became more than a tragedy. It became a turning point. He was remembered not just for the hundreds of whales he helped free, but as the first person ever to die in the line of duty within the Atlantic Large Whale Disentanglement Network. In a profession built on courage, his passing was a harsh reminder of the unforgiving nature of the work. Within weeks, agencies like NOAA and Canada's Department of Fisheries and Oceans launched internal reviews. Safety briefings were rewritten. Rescue protocols, once driven by instinct and muscle memory, were examined with sharper eyes. Joe's name began to appear in training rooms across North America. His face watched quietly from framed photographs and fading newspaper clippings. To the next generation of rescuers, he became both an inspiration and a warning. His story stood at the crossroads of hope and danger. He had not died in vain. He had died proving that heroism cannot erase risk, and that every life saved carries a cost someone somewhere has paid. There are those who speak for the ocean, and there are those who act. Joe acted not with a camera or a lecture, but with a rope, a knife, a boat, and a belief that no living thing should suffer in the grip of our mistakes. Now the sea lay still. The freed whale was gone alive and somewhere far beyond the continental shelf where light fades and the deep begins. But the boat return changed. Joe Howlett hadn't needed to be there that day. He was a volunteer, a fisherman by trade, a protector by choice. He had already done enough dozens of rescues, years of risk. But when the call came, when another whale was reported dragging heavy ropes across the ocean floor, he went. He went because he believed no life, no matter how massive, no matter how wild, should suffer because of human carelessness. There are moments when a person must stand between suffering and survival, when stepping forward means danger, but standing back means carrying a weight you cannot live with. Joe knew that moment, and he stepped forward. The ocean had given him peace. In the end, it also claimed him. Yet even as the tide closed over that day, his story did not end. It lives in every trainee's hands, in every rope that falls slack, in every whale that slips away into the blue. The Atlantic Large Whale Disentanglement Network carries on his mission, though the dangers remain. And if this story has moved you, share it. Let Joe's legacy ripple far beyond this moment. Let others understand the risk, the sacrifice, and the love it takes to protect what is wild. In the years since that day, the whale Joe freed has been sighted twice each time, swimming strong and untangled in the open Atlantic. For many, it's proof that his final act wasn't in vain. But the risks remain, and every rescue still walks the razor's edge between life saved and life lost. If you believe stories like Joe's deserve to be remembered, share this video, subscribe for more true accounts from the wild, and help keep the conversation about protecting our oceans alive. The sea will always have its dangers. What matters is how we choose to face them.